The Starlined Katana is one of the latest katana in Shadow of the Erdtree, and it's known for its unique skill attack combinations. If you want an effective build for this katana, this video is for you. The Cosmic Samurai is unique in terms of gameplay, as this build utilizes the damage over time tactics while also performing hard-hitting combos thanks to the Starlined Katana's mentioned skill. You will be seeing quick high damage numbers when performing its combo, and also this build is versatile in a lot of situations because of having more range spells on its kit. The power of the stars will be yours when using this build. The Cosmic Samurai has high dexterity and intelligence, and as usual, with a little bit of fate stat to have access to attack and defense boosting incantations. Let's start this guide with a basic by tackling the Cosmic Samurai stats. Note that I will be standardizing all of my builds around level 200, and it is up to you if you wish to level up this build past around this level. Starting with bigger first, and I allocated 45 points to it since you are expected to dodge properly with this setup. However, if you think this is pretty too low, you can increase this to 50, especially if you have low Scadutree blessing. Next is mine, and 35 points have been allocated to it, and you will be casting a lot of incantations and skill when using this build, so it is highly suggested. Talking about endurance next, and 25 points have been allocated to it, and the Starlined Katana's unique skill eats a lot of stamina, but I think 25 points will do the job since you're not going to spam the full attack combo anyways, and you're stuck on using the Onze's first set of attack. While no points have been added to strength on the other hand, and also dexterity is our main stats for this build, so 69 points have been allocated to it, while also paying attention to intelligence, so our sorceries can hit hard as well. Next is Fate, and 25 points have been allocated to Fate, so you can access attack and defense boosting incantations, so we can increase the build's offensive capabilities. Lastly, no points were allocated to Arcane, as we do not need any. Now the basic playstyles and build stats are out of the way, let's move on to the Cosmic Samurai's equipment. All of the item locations will be linked in the description section below, along with the build showcase, so stay tuned for that as well. Starting with the main weapon of this build, which is the mentioned Starlined Katana. The katana requires 10 strength and 23 dexterity and 21 intelligence, so you can use it properly. In terms of scaling, it will have D for strength, B for dexterity, and lastly D for intelligence. This is the reason why we focus on dexterity in our stat spread, and also having intelligence will further boost this katana's prowess. Also, this katana has an innate bloodlust buildup, and it serves as a good bonus only and should not be prioritized. Starlined Katana is indeed an interesting katana since it is capable of hard-hitting combination attacks when performing Onze's line of stars, a unique skill that lets the user perform a series of attacks when pressing the L2 button up to 3 sets of combo. The weapon basics are out of the way, let's move on to the pros of the Starlined Katana. There is no doubt that the Onze's line of stars full combo hits like a truck when the user manages to do it, since this skill increases its potency after each follow-up attack. Anyone can see Onze's line of stars' phenomenal range, especially when performing the skill combo finisher. As you cleave with its long-range attacks, this skill can also make regular enemies flinch easily, especially when dealing with humanoid-type targets, making this weapon a satisfying weapon to use when out in the fields or when in dungeons. Regular enemies can almost do nothing against this weapon, so you will have the upper hand in most cases, and clearing of enemies will such an easy task for this weapon. Of course, like any other weapon, it has its downsides, and you already guessed the first one. Onze's line of stars is definitely strong, but the long attack animation is very hard to pull off in most cases. Being able to pull off a combo is super rare, especially when we are talking about boss fights. Its combo transitions are rather slow, so even there were cases that the humanoid type enemies can act or retaliate when you are performing the full combo. I was pretty surprised that it is much easier to pull off the Sword of Knight's fully charged attack than the Onze's full combo, so you will have an idea of how long the wind-up time is. Additionally, since its attacks get stronger after successive follow-ups, its initial attack hits pretty weak and needs to be buffed in my opinion, especially since you will be using the first set of attacks most of the time because it is the only thing that you can do, especially when dealing with fast-moving targets. You will suffer from enemy attacks most of the time if you are trying to prolong the combo or trying to do the full combo, and this is the reason why I mentioned that you are stuck performing the initial L2 attacks. You can easily see that this skill is hard to maximize when dealing with bosses in the DLC because they are so aggressive and leaves you with a little window time to retaliate. Moving on to the build's secondary weapon, and I am using the Carian Regal Scepter mainly because of its looks, as it matches the theme of the build. It also has an S scaling in terms of intelligence, and we'll be using this to boost our sorcery's potencies later on. Additionally, I am using the finger seal to have access to attack buffs for this build. Weapons are out of the way, let's move on to my suggested spells. I mentioned that we will be accessing buffs when using this build, thus the first one on the list is Flame Grant Me Strength Incantation for additional 20% physical attack boost and stamina recovery buff. The second buff on the list is of course Golden Vow. This buff increases overall damage by 15% and adds 10% damage negation, which is very helpful for this build. Since this build revolves around the powers of the stars, the Star Ruin Incantation is perfect for this build. A chargeable incantation that will serve as your range attack for this build. Additionally, I suggest slotting the Founding Rain of Stars, which adds a lot of fun factor in this build. What I usually do is cast it before a target gets close to me, and when it goes off, it will rain down stars to the target, dealing damage over time. Now the crazy part is you can use Onzes when the sorcery is still active, ramping the damage pretty easily. This is also a chargeable sorcery, so keep that in mind. However, only use this combo if you are confident that you can pull it off, since its usage varies from boss to boss. But before anything else, only 6% of you who watch the channel regularly are subscribed, so help the channel by subscribing today, and it's free anyway, and I will thank you forever. If you can hit that like button as well, it will surely help me a lot. Join our Discord server as we are building an empire where you can find like-minded people who love the same genre. Now back into the video. So the main equipment is out of the way, let's move on to the build's talismans. The first talisman on the list is our staple Shard of Alexander. This provides a 15% skill damage increase, especially when performing Onze's Line of Stars. I highly recommend using this talisman, so be sure to slot this one. Since Onze's Line of Stars makes you vulnerable to attacks, the Dragon Crest Great Shield is a great addition to this build. Its 20% damage mitigation can increase your chances of survival, especially if you have low Scattertree Blessing. I'm still using the Rotten Wing Sword Insignia and Millicent's Prestigious combo just because I prefer dealing with super high attack damage when I successfully perform Onze's full combo. However, you can change Millicent's Prestigious any day with Magic Scorpion Charm for more damage. Now that the main equipment is out of the way, let's move on to the Cosmic Samurai's armor set. For this build, I'm wearing the Land of Reed's helm to preserve the build's identity. The rest that I'm wearing are the Oathseeker's armor pieces. It does give the vibe of being a space samurai, and not to mention, this armor looks really sick in terms of details. Moving on to my Flask of Wondrous Physics combination, since this build relies heavily on multi-hit attacks, I highly suggest using Thorny Crack Tear for further increase of damage. Pair it with Magic Crack Tear so we can boost the build's firepower, as this build mainly revolves around magic damage anyway. Now that the equipment and spells are out of the way, let's move on to the Cosmic Samurai's gameplay tips and optimization tips. The first tip on the list is optimizing your opener as usual. Before on when the battle starts, what I usually do is cast Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength. Next is popping my Flask of Wondrous Physics to gain the overall attack boost. Then I will try my best to deal the best damage possible during this burst phase or opener, since all of your buffs are active during this time. You will be dealing tons of damage in the process if you do it correctly. The second tip on the list is to use Onze's Line of Stars wisely. This skillful combo is hard to pull off, and it's wise to stick with the skill's first attack animation and rely on it instead of doing normal attacks. Depending on whose boss are you facing, it will require time and patience to master this skill. As you play or spend time with this build, you will know when it's the time to perform its full combo. And most of the time, it is when the enemy is staggered or it performs an attack with a long recovery time. Now for tip number 3 is when your Scattertree Blessing is high enough, you can change Dragon Crest Great Shield with something like Graven-Mass Talisman to increase the potency of your sorceries. The Cosmic Samurai is a fun build to play, especially when in exploration. However, I see Starlined Katana as the perfect second weapon for the Moonveil, so stay tuned for this next build. If you find value out of this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.